Hi guys, this is Darren Bain. This video is courtesy of the London Hairdressing Apprenticeship Academy. What I want to do really is follow on from the previous video that I've done, and it's all to do with the cutting theory in the hairdressing industry. So I've just put this section as a session 2, so cutting theory session 2. Okay, so session 1, I just touched pretty much from the beginning with the baseline, or like a one length, giving different names for each particular term. So one length and also like a baseline or a perimeter. And then I went through each one. So if you haven't seen that video, please watch that video before you watch this video. Okay, so it's Cutting Theory Session 1 with Darren Bain, and this one is my follow-up. So as I say, if you haven't seen that one, please go and watch that first. This one is really about expanding it a little bit further, going a little bit deeper into the meanings, and also stuff that I missed out. I did miss out some stuff in the first one. Not that I missed out, but I can only put enough in to one video, and there's so much other stuff to learn and to know. So I'm going to put a few more bits in here, and then I'm just going to expand on each one. Okay, and I just think it's really going to help a lot of people. As I said before, just to kind of just go, oh, okay, I get it. It means, you know, that's what that means, or oh right, okay, you know, all it is that. And then some of it you might be like, oh, really not getting this, okay? And that's okay as well, because, you know, you're not going to get everything straight away. And, you know, you are going to, you know, make mistakes. But the only thing I would say, guys, this is really important. When you make a mistake, please try and think about why you made a mistake, and don't just do it again and again and again, because that's the definition of madness, when you just keep doing something and expecting different results, okay? So please just, when you do something that you're not sure about, you know, maybe have a little think about what happened and what you could do differently. But I do believe this video will help, okay? So let's go straight into it, and we're going to go from the top like we did before, okay? So I'm going to start out with number 1. This is called distribution. The distribution is a really important word that we use a lot in the industry, especially when we're teaching. What is distribution? Well, just to simplify it, we distribute hair, okay? So as a hair industry, when we're cutting hair, to create different hairstyles, it's all about distribution, okay? So you think about every haircut that's different, well, it was cut differently, wasn't it? Of course. So in order to make each hairstyle different, it's about where you're distributing the hair before you cut it, you know? So are you distributing it at 90 degrees? Are you distributing it, you know, teeth apart in flat? Whatever you're doing, the distribution is the dominant factor in what's going to happen to the hair, okay? So how can I simplify distribution for you? It's basically going from A to B, okay? So you're going from one point of the head to another part of the head. So from A to B, okay? So for example, with Dolly, if I was to comb the hair at 90 degrees from the head, okay, I'm distributing the hair from A to B at 90 degrees, okay? All right, so that's the distribution. Now, if I'm over-directing the hair, okay, I'm over-directing, so my distribution is over-directing, okay? So that word distribution is really about where the hair is travelling to, okay? Because again, like I said before, when we cut hair, we don't just pick the hair up and cut it. It's going somewhere deliberately. This is a really important factor, guys. When we cut hair deliberately. We don't just cut hair. Every section is cut for a purpose, deliberately, to create a specific shape, okay? And that is distribution. So you got to know where you're distributing the hair before you cut it. Otherwise, you're just picking hair up and cutting it and hoping for the best. And obviously, that's only going to end one way, okay? Badly. Right, so second, we have elevation, okay? Elevation, a very widely used term in the industry. When we think of the word elevation, I mean, if you're just starting out in hairdressing, just think of an elevator. What is elevation? It's basically lifting, okay? So the key word here is lifting. So again, if I use the same section, if I'm lifting the hair at 90 degrees, my elevation, I'm elevating the hair to 90. If I'm graduating, I'm elevating the hair to 45. If I'm cutting the hair one length, it's what we would call a 0 elevation, okay? So you start with 0 elevation, see my comb? And then we start working up. Like a lift, we're elevating, we're going up and up and up. So what's the highest point of elevation? Okay, is it 90? Nope. It's 100, isn't it? Okay, can't get more than that. So you elevate all the way to the top, okay? And that's your elevation, all right? So that's quite simple, quite straightforward. Then we've got expanded form, okay? So we're going a little bit more into an advanced kind of prospect. Expanded form, some hairdressers, you might have heard use this term over the years, called oh, you know, imagine if your client stuck her finger in a plug socket, okay, which is a bit of a, it's an analogy, maybe not the best one, but what they're trying to get across is imagine if all of the hair is standing on end, okay, and we can do that with the doll's head. So if I get the dolly head and like tip her head upside down, like for example with the back, you'll be able to see where the hair was graduated previously, okay, you can see that, and then if it's a one length haircut, you should be able to see the line like that, okay, so it looks a bit crazy from underneath, doesn't it? But you know, at the end of the day, it's really to show the expanded form. So if the hair was standing on end, what shape is it? So if you cut a round layer, it should be like a triangle. If you cut a square layer, it's square. If you cut, you know, something that's concave, you know, you're going to get that dip through the middle. If it's one length, you're going to get that sort of block heaviness at the bottom. So that's your expanded form, okay? Now the word I like to use personally is 3D, and that is basically three-dimensional. Okay, so we've all seen 3D films, we know what 3D is, okay? It's to make something more lifelike. So like a hologram is 3D, okay? So think hologram, you're thinking about this expanded form, so it's like a 360-degree angle. So you're looking from whatever angle and you're seeing something different, okay? And this is where it gets quite technical. So when you look at something from one angle, it might be different from a different angle, okay? And that is where you have to expand not only the expanded form as a term, but you have to expand your mind as well in order to really understand this, okay? I particularly love this. I think it comes very into play when you're doing advanced hairdressing. It's really important to see what you're expecting to achieve when the hair is expanded, okay? And then if you look at hair when it's like this isn't 3D, this is 2D, okay? So the hair is flat, and that's how we see it. And then 3D is when it's expanded, okay? So, as I say, if you're not too sure about that, and you want to know a bit more about it, you know, watch the video back over again once I've done the whole video, and just really think about it. And then there's going to be more videos to come as well, which I'd like to also do actually as a demo. So I'm going to be doing haircuts as well with expanded form, okay? And then we're going to move on to parallel. A parallel is a really great word that I personally use again, and if you're not sure what parallel is, again, the key really to parallel is just reflecting. So you're reflecting what you're doing. So it's a bit like an expanded form, but it's your parallel. So for example, if you, again, I use the same section again. So if I bring the hair out at 90, I'm parallel to the head shape, okay? So 90 degrees is parallel to the head, which is there. But then if I move down to the bottom part of the head, then parallel is actually here. So your section, your 90-degree section is actually moving in a different angle depending on what part of the head shape. Because the head is round, the 90-degree angle, okay, which is parallel to the head, okay? So everything that is parallel is following the contours of the head, okay? So for example, where the head is quite flat on the top, this area here is quite flat, parallel would just be straight up from the top of the head because you're parallel to that part of the head. And then as the head starts to curve, well then you'll be coming here, parallel, 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 yeah? So that's parallel to the head. Okay, and you can also be parallel to a section, for example. So, you know, if your section is horizontal, for example, you can be parallel to your section. Okay, so parallel is really reflecting where you are on the head. Okay, and then we have foundation. Now, foundation is the most important part of hairdressing. Okay, and that basically creates structure. So you need to have a foundation in a haircut. A foundation comes from when the hair's wet, and it comes from technique, strong understanding of the haircut that you've done. Then you have the foundation, and then that leads you into other areas that you know, can be done after when the hair's dry, texturizing and stuff like that, which I'm going to come on to now. Okay, but foundation, just so you know, is your technique. So the stronger the foundation, the stronger the technique. Okay, so for example, if you don't have a strong foundation, you know, if you're building a house, for example, houses are built on foundations. If the foundations aren't true and secure, okay, the house is not going to last, it's going to fall down, okay? We need to make sure that the haircuts that we do have a strong foundation, okay? And what happens then is clients will comment. So typically what a client would say is, my haircut lasted so well last time, you know, 12 weeks or something. And that's the strong foundation, okay? So get a good strong foundation, you will then get a good strong client base as well, because they will recognise how their hair is sitting. You know, I didn't have to do anything to my hair today. My hair looked great for such a long period of time. It's all to do with foundation, okay? So I take pride in foundation. you should also take pride in foundation. And to get a good foundation is all of these things that we talked about, and also session 1, okay, the video I've already told you about. Then we go on to pivoting, okay? Pivoting is a crucial part of hairdressing. We pivot most of the time when we're graduating and we want to build up weight, but that's not to say that's the only time, because we can actually pivot when we're layering. Even a round layer can be pivoted. Again, to simplify pivoting, we've gone from moving in a clock-like fashion, okay? So pivoting is like a clock, okay? You can work anti-clockwise or clockwise, it doesn't matter, okay? But you're typically starting on a vertical, and then you'll be coming round to the diagonal, and then you'll end up on a horizontal, okay? So again, if we use the model, we start out on the vertical at the back, and as we come round, yeah, think of a clock, okay? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Okay, so we've gone round 6 o'clock, okay? 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or even doing halves, 5:30, 5, 4:30, 4, 3:30, 3, yeah, like that, okay? So you're working by using this tick tock, okay? Pivoting is fantastic. I love it. I do it a lot. Pretty much every graduated haircut I do is pivoting. The point of pivoting, okay, this is the most important part, is it's a fixed point. So every section you take comes from the same spot. So if you're taking a vertical section at the beginning, wherever that section starts, you're combing the hair from the same point. Yeah, that is pivoting. If you move your section along, you're traveling, your guide is traveling, it's no longer pivoting, it's something else. So pivoting, yeah, and some people use pivoting radially. We know what radiating is because we talked about it in the last video. So you're radiating around, okay? You're pivoting around. So you're radiating, you're pivoting radially. Radiating, pivoting, okay? It's all working in harmony. Then we go on to on the base, okay? Which is good from pivoting, because when you're on the base, that means there's no movement, okay? Any direction. So typically what we talked about in the previous video was perpendicular. So if I comb the hair out straight, okay, it's on the base, it's reflecting, it's parallel to the parting, okay? Parallel to the parting, okay, it's on the base. If I move it one way or the other, which is called what? Yes, over direction. As soon as you over direct it, then it's not on the base anymore. Another term for on the base, which is really, which we don't think about so much when we blow dry. So we're blow drying on the base, or do we blow dry extended forward, coming back onto the base, extend it back? It is different ways. But the base is the section that you take. So if it comes off the base, it's no longer perpendicular, it's over directed, okay? So on base is really good, and it's straight out, okay? So the simple term would be straight out, okay? And then you've got fixed point, okay? Which again, fixed point is a really fantastic tool. So when you're over directing, for example, say for example I'm going to over direct all of this side into the back, okay, to keep the hair longer at the front, I would then be over directing all of the hair on the sides to a fixed point. So it's all coming back to this fixed point. All of this hair, back, yeah, all coming in to a fixed point at the back. And that's what we call fixed point. We're doing a layer on the top, and we're bringing the hair up, okay? And then I bring all this hair up. It's coming up to a fixed point, okay? So it's a really good term as well to be familiar with. So fixed point, also, just to simplify, all sections cut at the same point, okay? And what you also got to understand with that, guys, you've got to know what's going to happen to the hair. What's going to happen to the hair if it's all cut at a fixed point? Okay, it's going to get longer. Each section is going to get longer. Why is each section going to get longer? Because it's got further to travel to its destination, okay? Should we just touch on that, because that can be a little bit confusing? Okay, so if the fixed point is here, on the top of the head, okay, the next section has only got a little bit to travel to get to the first section. And then the section there, as you can see, it's got a little bit further to get to the first section. This section here has also got further to get before it gets to the first section, okay? So the hair would get longer because it's got further to travel, okay? So each section will get progressively longer towards the bottom, okay? And then what I really want to talk about now is texturizing, okay? Texturizing is, I mean it's a wonderful thing, texturizing, okay? It can be the making of a haircut, I think, for some clients, but it can also be the breaking of a haircut, and it can be detrimental to learning as well, okay? So what I'd like to do is touch on that. Why can it be detrimental to learning? Because the whole point about learning how to be a great hairdresser really comes into the umbrella of foundation. okay? Building that strong foundation. What does texturizing do exactly to hair, okay? It basically takes away the structure element, okay? It takes percentages of the hair out, okay? So when you do texturize hair, as much as it's a wonderful thing to do, and I do believe 99% of clients would need some form of texturizing in their hair to give it that finished personal look, I think you have to be super careful to not over texturize the hair in order for it to then lose the structure, lose the strength that the haircut has. Okay, so it's really important to texturize hair if needed be, but to know when to stop. Okay, and also what texturizing technique are you going to use? Okay, because there's a few that I've just highlighted here, and I'm going to go through them. Now, every one of them is slightly different. Everyone's going to give a slightly different effect. Okay, let's go from the top and let's just show you what I mean. So texturizing, what I'd like to also just touch on is a few things within that is the personalizing. Okay, so personalizing is another term for texturizing. Okay, so texturizing, as you may be familiar, is creating texture in hair. So if something's not flat and it's not one length and it's not it's not a completely flat surface, it has some form of texture. So things like wood, like timber or furniture or fabrics, they generally, if they're not flat, like marble, they will have grain in them. Okay, that is classed as texture. So with our eyes, again with colour, with balayage and anything like that, it's texture that we see with our eyes. Okay, so if something's completely flat, one colour, yeah, like a whiteboard, that's not texture. There's no texture on a whiteboard unless, you know, there's another colour that's introduced. Okay, so something that's blanket colour will be a flat colour and it won't have any texture. But with hair, it's basically when you can see more than one length of hair. So even if it's the same colour, like the mannequin, it's pretty much the same colour, yeah? So to get texture into this mannequin, there's two ways you could do it. One is to colour it, different, yeah, balayage it, that create texture, because you're going to create a different tone. If you're not going to colour it, like this for example, then you can put texture in by doing the haircut that I've done, for example, by putting layers in the hair, by texturising into the hair to create this kind of, you know, broken feel to the hair, which makes the hair look more, a bit more, you know, fluffier, a bit more furry, a bit more animal-like, okay? And that's pretty much the way we should be designed, okay? You know, we shouldn't really have a haircut that's completely, don't want to use the word perfect, but, you know, something that's completely perfect, it doesn't look real, it doesn't look like it's going to move, it looks a bit static, a bit stiff. And that's where texturising comes in, that's where texturising really comes into its play. And that's why I believe a lot of clients love a bit of texture, is because sometimes with just a pure cut, it's a bit rigid, it's a bit static, and doesn't look so natural, okay? So the first texturising technique is point cutting, okay? So we've got point, slice, channel, back, and twist, and they're all part of the cut, all part of cutting. So point cutting, slice cutting, channel cutting, back cutting, twist cutting, okay? Let's go through each one with you. So point cutting is the most popular, and what does it do? Okay, it really emphasises the ends of the hair. So when you cut hair, okay, what tends to happen? Okay, so if you pick the hair up and cut it, sometimes what happens if you get like a bit of a line, it's a bit blunt. So when the hair drops, it can look a bit either a bit liney, a bit heavy, and just a little bit, you know, a little bit blocky. Okay. So what point cutting does, it really just works on the ends. So all of this hair here doesn't get texturized. This is still quite a heavy sheet of hair, and then this bit is the bit that gets softened. As you can see, I've texturized this already because you can just tell by the ends. But all this hair under here wouldn't be touched if I was to just point cut. So let's just point cut this hair here. So what I'm going to do is what I call parallel point cut. Parallel, we've already touched on. Parallel, can you remember what parallel is? It's the same angle as the base of the section, okay? So the hair is coming out at 90 degrees. My scissors are mirroring that, and then it's cutting down into the hair at 90 degrees. What about if I cut in still point cutting, but did it at 45 degrees? What would happen then? Okay, so 45 degrees, I'm going to be like this, and what's going to happen is I'm going to take chunks of hair out. Much more aggressive way of texturising the hair, and something I personally wouldn't do. You wouldn't really see me point cutting on a 45, okay? But it does happen. I do see it happening. Does it have a purpose? I guess it does. Personally, it's not something that I would do. I would go always on a parallel point cut, and my aim is to really soften the edges, so when it drops down, it intertwines with the rest of the hair like this, rather than laying on top of each section. Intertwine, yeah? And by intertwining it, it just falls into it finds its home, if you like. So it finds its home within the hair, rather than each sheet of hair lying on top of each other, which can happen when you blunt cut. Okay, so that's point. Okay, then we go to slice. Okay, slice is probably the second most popular. It's quite showboaty. What I mean by that is sometimes you'll see it a lot on videos. You'll see it being done on stage in certain hair events. It looks good. It's dramatic. It's probably not as advisable to do in the salon on a client because it can look, again, it can be quite aggressive looking. Let me show you, okay? So we typically just take the section, and then what you do with slice is you give yourself a bit more real estate, so you give yourself a bigger bit of hair to deal with than you would with a point. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come in sort of mid-lengths and then work through to the ends. See that bit there? So again, it's quite aggressive, okay? So you're taking out a lot more hair, a lot more hair. So if you're point cutting, remember, you're just softening the ends of the hair like this, and you're only really softening those edges, whereas this, you're going in and you're really taking out large pieces of hair. So there's quite a difference between slicing and pointing. But again, slicing's got a great purpose, and it's more for sort of more creative haircuts that you really want to get in there and get some really different angles in there, really create something that's really quite disheveled and quite broken. So I like it. I don't do it particularly that often, but I do believe for creative haircuts, it's definitely got a good place. Okay, so that's slicing. Channel, okay, channel cutting is not so known in hairdressing, okay, but it's a beautiful technique. I've been using it for over the years and I love it. Again, I use it mainly on creative. I'm going to demonstrate now for you. So with channel, what you do is you get the client. It's all done on dry hair, by the way. So all texturizing, in my opinion, should be done on dry hair. Sometimes you sit on wet hair. Not a fan, but you know, everyone's to their own. So what we do with channeling is you get the scissors, the base of the scissors. Okay, you pop it onto the scalp and then you run the blade down through the hair like that. So this looks, you know, it looks quite, again, it can be quite scary. If I was to do this on a client, what I do is I explain to the client what I'm going to do, just to make sure that they're at ease. And then look, you don't see much going on, but when you comb it, you see the hair falling out. But it's not as aggressive as it looks, okay? So you're working through, and what it does, it really just takes a bit of weight out. See the hair coming out through the, just taking out the bulb, but it doesn't create any lines or marks in the hair, which is quite incredible, because again, you would imagine there to be a lot of marks in the hair. Now, the reason why, okay, here's all the hair coming out, you can see. The reason why it doesn't create a lot of marks in the hair is, again, because I'm parallel to the hair. If I was to change the angle of my scissors like this and started going down that way on a 45, that would be catastrophic, okay? And I would be taking massive chunks out of the hair. So there's a right way and a wrong way of doing it. And please, if you're going to do any of these, just stick to your parallel texturizing techniques, okay? Because they're much more gentle and much more subtle, and you can keep going over the same section like this over and over until you're happy with the desired look. But trust me, it's all about parallel. As soon as you start coming in at different angles, you're gonna find yourself in you know, not a nice place, okay? And you're probably gonna get very stressed. Okay, so that's this the channel, which I like. The reason why I call it channel is because you're working like in the channels. Okay, so these sort of channel strips of hair. So channel cutting, beautiful technique. Then we have a back cutting technique. Probably don't ever use this personally, but it was quite big in the 90s, and I know 90s is fashionable again, so who knows, it could come back in. But you know, it's got a purpose. It's one of the aggressive techniques, but it does work quite well for that particular, you know, style. So again, if I take the hair, what I do, so I would bring the hair out, and then what I'm going to do now, instead of working with the hair towards the ends and the middle, which we've been doing with the others, you go underneath. So you get your scissors, you go underneath the hair this way, and then what you do is you push back into the hair. This is where the back cutting comes in. So you back, and then you elevate the hair as you cut. So there's some fantastic hairdressers out there that can cut. You know, I've seen do whole haircuts just with back cutting technique. The visual result at the end can be quite nice, okay? But again, for me, I'm really about working with foundation, okay? I need to know that I've got a strong foundation. So texturizing for me is just a little bit, it's just adding a little bit to it. For me to do a whole haircut with texturizing, even if I've got a good visual result, I would be a little bit concerned that the haircut wouldn't grow out as well. But, you know, as I say, hairdressing has multiple different ways of approaching the hair. I just want to share them with you because I don't believe there's right or wrong, you know. There's different ways of doing things, you know, and people do things differently to the way I do it, and that's okay, okay? There's not a right or wrong, but there's better and worse, okay? If a haircut, the end result comes out and it doesn't look great, you have to agree that that's wrong, there's something went wrong in the haircut. If something is fantastic and it looks amazing, you also have to agree that something went really well in that haircut and find, you know, what was it, you know, and make sure that you learn from that and you can, you know, recreate it. So that's the back cutting, and I think you'd agree that's quite aggressive. And it's also quite scary if you're quite new to hairdressing. Personally, don't do it if you're new to hairdressing. And then the twist cutting, which is a lovely technique. Probably wouldn't do twist cutting on the sort of straighter bobs, but twist cutting really comes into its own on curly hair. I love curly hair, and I think that if we was to twist cut curly hair, what you'd expect more is again different lengths within the curls. So curly hair could be typically quite rigid again. So by twist cutting it, it really releases the hair. It's really good on afro hair, and I say not so good on straight hair. Let's just have a little demonstration for you now. It is a mannequin after all. So what you do when you twist cut, you take a reasonably large section, okay, and then what you do is you twist it like so. This can be done on wet hair, by the way, especially if you're doing curly hair, but be very careful. There's two ways of doing it. One is the extended back cutting technique. So you twist it first, then you back cut like that. So it's quite abrasive. You're obviously going back on the cuticle, and you're going to kind of get that effect. Okay, it's very aggressive. That's why I use it particularly in that way. The way I like to use twist cutting is to twist the hair like so. And what I gently do is I just use a 1, 2, 3 technique, okay? And that is just a little squeeze. 1, 2, 3. Now the hair hasn't released yet because it's twisted. But when you release the hair, so let's just comb the hair out, you're going to see is you're going to get quite a lot of hair, yeah, that's come out, okay? And that's because it's twisted. You cut it, it locks in, and then when untwist it, the hair will release. Okay, that's a nice technique, but again, I wouldn't do it so much on straight hair, okay, because it can create a few marks and indentations in the hair. All right, so that's your texturizing. Okay, we covered the majority, and the main reason is really to understand how to personalize and how to finish a haircut. Okay, so we've gone through the foundation, we've gone through all the distribution, and we've touched on quite a lot of the terminology, and I really hope a lot of the terminology has really helped to really break it down and for you guys to understand a little bit in detail what each terminology is and what you can expect from the hair when you do it. And then the texturizing really is personalising each client. It's very rarely a time when you do a wet cut, blow dry it, and then it's completely perfect and you don't have to touch it, okay? Very rarely happens. Doesn't matter how good you are, how long you've been hairdressing. Most hairdressers will finish and then pick up a pair of scissors and comb and just do their thing, and it's all pretty much to do with texturizing, okay, at that moment. And it's all bespoke in, okay? So another word for texturizing and personalising is bespoke. So bespoke would be, you know, it's a bit like if you get a suit, okay? So they get a suit off a peg, okay? You can't expect that suit to fit you perfectly, okay? You need to have it tailor-made to fit you, okay? And it's like a woman, when she's getting married, she gets her dress that she likes, and then she'll get it fitted, and it needs to be fitted perfectly to her. Imagine that for a haircut, okay? So your haircut fits you perfectly. Because every technique out there, whether it's a square layer, round layer, concave layer, you know, full graduation, whatever these techniques we have, they're generic techniques, okay? We do them on everyone, but not everyone's the same. They're all different. We have different densities of hair, we have different hair textures, hair moves differently on different people, okay? So when you do a technique, that's the generic style that you're trying to create, then you have to expand it with texturizing. So try to use these techniques, and that will help you to personalize the look, finish the look for that particular person. Okay, so I really hope this video has helped. Okay, and I just want to finish up with, when you do any texturizing, please just be cautious and just take it just a little bit at a time. Try and do it on dry hair, and look at the hair when you're doing it, and make sure that you're not, you know, overdoing it. Okay, because when I said before, the texturizing is to just enhance the finish. Okay, texturizing is also quite enjoyable and it's quite fun, and sometimes you can get carried away. There's a few other little things that I haven't touched on with texturizing, and I don't want to put it into this video, but I do want to mention it. And that is, there's thinning scissors, okay? Thinning scissors, I would say, you know, part of hairdressing, and they're part of texturizing, I would say. I'd definitely put it into that category. But if you do use thinning scissors, again, I'm one of these hairdressers where I do believe in people to be open. I don't believe in right or wrong. So I don't say to people, don't use thinning scissors. Thinning scissors are wrong, they're bad, which, you know, I've heard people say that. I can understand why they say it, but I don't like to say that personally, because I do believe there is a place for thinning scissors. I know some of the best hairdressers in the world that I've worked with in the past that use them a lot, but just be careful with them, because again, they can be detrimental to the shape, they can be detrimental to your hairdressing. Why can they be detrimental to your hairdressing? Because if you make a mistake in a haircut and you create weight and bulk and lines and marks, you then think, oh, I'll just take it out with the thinning scissors, okay? So you're not really learning. So when you have these mistakes that happen, texturizing is not the answer, guys, okay? You've got to go back in there, find out what happened. Why was your graduation, like that? Where was you standing? Where was the hair being distributed? Understand it and master it. And when you learn how to cut hair in that way, you'll find your texturizing will be minimum. It will be a minimum at the end because your haircuts are on point. Okay, I've always said all along, the more texturized you do at the end of a haircut is an indication of your ability to cut the hair in the first place. Okay, so I'm going to leave that with you because that's something to really think about. Okay, so again, I really hope you got something from the class, and I will be doing more of these because I really just want to go into more depth about it even further. And I also want to do some more haircuts with you using a combination of all these. All right, so thanks for listening as always. Take care. See you next time.